Morning, everyone. I'm Paul Healy, Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Principals Association. With me this morning is Eric Eschbach, our new Assistant Executive Director. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Paul.
So we've been doing weekly webinars. For this one, though, we decided to come to you live, as well as we'll be doing an upload of the recorded webinar as well, in case people have some questions. So Eric, for this week, the professional organizations as well as school districts have been asking the Department of Health and PDE for some more specific guidance, especially around the metrics and what to do about COVID-19 and what are the metrics that are going to be using going forward, and just a little bit more guidance on that. So we finally got some more of that. Whether you accept it or not is a different thing, but now that we have it. So we did ask for it, we did get it. I know a lot of people are saying, boy, this would have been nice 4 or 5 weeks ago. And we will say to you, and we'll mention this over and over again this morning, PDE was very clear that these are recommendations, not mandates. However, to go against the recommendations could be troublesome.
Yeah,
and there's liability issue.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion with the Edwards as far as, you know, if you don't follow the guidance, are you opening yourself up for liability, which is yet to be determined in the courts, I'm sure.
Yep. So we've have everyone muted this morning just for logistics, so we're not getting feedback. We ask you to use the chat room if you have any questions, and at the end we'll start answering some of those chats as well. Can somebody give us something in the chat room? We're just checking audio again just to make sure that we're coming through loud and clear before we get started here.
Oh yeah, I got a lot of hellos.
All right, thanks everyone. All right, so here we go. So Eric, can you call up our PowerPoint at this point? So one of the first things we really want to go over is we know that all districts have to submit a safety and an educational plan to PDE. And there's a lot of different terms floating out there. So in the new guidance that came out, we just want to make sure that everybody has a shared understanding about what PDE is saying these terms mean to them. So as you're devising your plans, you may want to be thinking about those. Because we've heard flex plans, we've heard hybrid, we've heard all kinds of different, variations of the terms. So the first one, of course, is the full in-person model. And basically it's saying school is open each day with in-person instruction for all students. That's the big distinction. Every day, all students, okay? However, having said that though, that's not all day, all students like it was prior to March 13th. That's not, we just bring everybody together and we forget about face masks and social distancing. This really means the new full in-person model.
Sure, and they're recommending, the Department of Health is recommending the 6-foot distancing, face masks when you're not able to distance 6 feet. Of course, there's issues with school bus riding and cafeteria and all that kind of stuff.
Controlling movement in the hallways, not like having extra people in the school, all of those types of guidelines are still on play. So we really want to make that clear distinction. This is not full instruction prior to March 13th. This is the new full instruction model.
That's a good point.
Okay, the second one is basically people calling the hybrid or blended learning model. And the PDE's definition is any model in which the number of students in a school building is reduced to allow for social distancing of 6 feet. Now, many people are going by this, what we're seeing is AB schedules, half the kids a couple days a week, half the kids the other part of the week. This may be accomplished in many ways, as they're talking about splitting the schedules that rotate either by the day or the week, or other kinds of variations. And we've heard a whole bunch of different variations for this. So just be aware of that's what PDE's hybrid model is. And then of course the last one is full remote learning model. And that's any model in which all students engage in all learning remotely. These are going to be very important because the new distinction as far as the metrics makes reference to these now. And that's the added component. We used to have red, yellow, green. That's kind of now gone away. We have some new categories. And Eric, I'll let you explain the new metrics.
Sure. If you can see this slide, I think it explains what has been published out there. Getting rid of the red, yellow, green. No longer shall we look for colors. Now we're looking at low, moderate, and substantial. So you're looking at the level of community transmission in the county. Now that's a challenge also, because we have some counties that have many school districts, and what may be occurring in one part of the county, say a city center, may be very different than what's occurring in other parts of the county. But that is what they're using. So they're using the low, moderate, substantial per county, and they're looking at the incidence rate per 100,000 residents. So now you think of a county, the county I live in, York County, has about 450,000 people. So you're going to take that times 4.5, but you want the per 100,000 for low to be less than 10, for moderate to be between 10 and 100, and for substantial to be over 100 per 100,000 residents. And then they're also looking at the percent of positivity over the most recent 7 days. And this is kind of a rolling 7 days. So again, if it's below 5%, you're in the low. Moderate is 5 to 10%, and above 10% is substantial. Now, the difference here is the and or, that middle column. So in order to qualify as a low county, you have to have less than 10 people per 100,000 that have tested positive, and you have to have less than 5% positivity. In moderate, it's 10 to 100 incidence rate, or 5 to 10% positivity. And substantial, it's either over 100 per 100,000 or over 10%. So, and then you look over in that last column, and it looks at the recommended instructional models. So they're saying, okay, the only way they're recommending full in-person model is if you're in a low incidence rate. There's about 20 counties when we last looked at this that are in that low rate. If you're in the moderate area, which is the large majority, probably about 45 counties that are in the moderate, they're suggesting either blended learning, that AB model, or whatever your blended learning looks like, or a full remote learning model. And if it's substantial, there's only one county right now that's substantial. That's Union County. There's been some talk about Union County. There's a federal prison there. Is it because of that? Is it because of the Bucknell University? What it may be. But looking at substantial, they would have to go to full remote learning model. Their guidance.
What about the qualification at the top, you know, that in any given 7-day period, I guess they take the population part out of that. They're saying if you have lower than, 10 cases, you're automatically in low for that week.
Yeah, I mean, that's my understanding.
I think that solves the population issue.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen right now, just so school leaders understand this, is that each week you will be able to go in and actually see this data. So they're going to post it by county, you know, what the cases are, and then also make the classification whether you're in low, moderate, or substantial. And we're going to show you that in a minute, a PDE slide on that as well going forward. So here's what they're suggesting, that school districts should really examine this data on a weekly basis. This is not something that's just for the reopening of school. This is something that should be looked at throughout the 2021 school year right now. And they built that to make it to do that throughout the school year.
School leaders to monitor.
Right. And they're also saying you should look at the last 2 consecutive weeks. And the reason for that is so you don't get that whiplash approach, that if you're in moderate one time and there's just so happen to get insubstantial, you shouldn't really change anything, at least until you see 2 weeks. Unless, remember that there's always the possibility that the Department of Health or PDE could step in, depending on the number of cases in the county, and say, you will do this, right? So that recommendation actually could become a mandate if the Department of Health would step in.
Absolutely.
And I think the only way that's going to happen is if you were in moderate, you all of a sudden get to substantial or low to substantial, and then something has to change right away. So basically, and that's what the second bullet says, higher confirmed cases kind of may cause a quicker change. So if you move from that moderate to substantial or low substantial or even low to moderate, you may have to do a quicker thing. And they are also suggesting that, especially in the lower moderate, that, you know, if you're going along and you have things in place and there's not a lot of fluctuation, but just a minor change, that you might not want to change right away. You might want to look at, you know, changing at a natural transition phase of the school year, which is a marking period.
Yeah.
And that kind of makes sense because you would get more data over time as well.
Exactly. I wanted to pull out some statements that were made in Monday's press conference. This is as it was reported in Penn Live in Jan Murphy's column. So I'm sure that you've read some things in your area as well. But I wanted to point out some things that were said there. Dr. Rivera said the department's recommendation is not for school districts to bounce from one instructional program to another, but rather that they should track it over a suggested 2 weeks, just like you talked about. And he suggested some districts may choose to switch delivery methods at the end of a marking period. So this is not just our interpretation. Right. This is coming from Dr. Rivera. Matt Stem, and we have worked very closely together. He's Deputy Education Secretary, had this quote: "Our recommendation is that when districts transition to a new instructional model, they take the time they need to ensure smooth transitions for students before returning or changing to another model. And that would include up until a full marking period to ensure the stability for students and families." They really are trying to focus on best educational practice and not flip-flopping.
Well, and also, I mean, the intent of this is if you switch instructional models too soon and do not play that out with your community, there are some things that parents have to do, especially in a switch to instructional models, whether that's daycare, childcare, you know, after school care. So We've got to think about all the stakeholders in this as well.
Absolutely. And then the last one, Dr. Levine had said that a caveat to this would be if there's a serious outbreak. The fact that this is guidance, there's always the caveat, right? It's guidance until it's not guidance. And that there's, if there's a serious outbreak, then they do a deep dive on that. And in working with the education department, they would call school districts to make a recommendation, possibly go full remote like they did back on March 13th. I wanted to highlight here the last sentence there. She and Rivera emphasized that the recommendations are not mandates, and Levine said that at this time she has no intention of taking action against a school that disregards this guidance. So we don't want people to feel that that it's a gotcha.
Right. So I think the other thing we want to do is, like, you know, we know sometimes that, you know, sometimes superintendents and central office people get this information by the time it trickles down to the building level. They really want to know too. So what we want to do is just show them exactly where is this information on the PDE website, and how you can access that on a daily basis if you want, but certainly you should be accessing that on a weekly basis to see where your county is at this point in time. So, Eric, you want to walk them through that?
Sure. So this is the PDE website. If you don't know where it is, it's education.pa.gov. And right in the on the home page, you get the reopening schools picture, and you click on more information. That will take you to, I'm really getting tired of seeing that picture.
Yes.
Reminds me of one of those landmines or that the submarines would go over. But we go to the reopening guidance for 2021 school year, and you're going to focus on the square that says pre-K to 12 school guidance. You click on that, and here's the kind of the confusing part. You go to the instructional model recommendations, right. Top right-hand square.
Yeah, we had trouble yesterday just trying to figure out where it was.
And it's just like any of our websites. It makes sense to us, but doesn't necessarily make sense to the user. Here you're at the point where you're determining the instructional model during the pandemic. There is a link right over here to access a file that provides the level of community transmission. When you click on that, it brings up an Excel spreadsheet. I'm just going to make sure that we're actually seeing this. So let me stop sharing this and make sure that we're on the Excel spreadsheet. And I'll let you talk about that, Paul.
Yeah, so the Excel spreadsheet, you can see it's set up to go over weeks throughout the school year. It's in alphabetical order by county. And they started with the most recent week, looks like it's going to be on the left-hand side, and then bump everything back. They're doing, as we said before, 2 weeks at a time. So they did the week ending 7/31 as the start. They went back and looked at that, and the week just ending 8/7. So for example, if you just, let's pick a county, Lackawanna County, for example, both of those weeks were in moderate. So you would look at moderate and then match that up with the instructional model they're currently in and see if that matches up. Now, if it doesn't, and the recommendation is in moderate that they do some type of a hybrid, right? Or full remote they can do, but not really full face-to-face, right? Or whatever it is, and that you would have to take a look at that and
Sure.
start discussing that.
And here's a good example. If you take a look at Union County here,
Right.
2 weeks ago they were at moderate, then they moved to substantial.
Yes.
So that's why you don't want to get, the school leaders don't want to get sucked into, a one-time, we're at low now, so now we can go back full-time, or we're in substantial, so now we have to stop.
Right, and looking also, at some of those counties that are substantial, looking at, so what's the etiology behind that? Is it because they have more nursing homes and things like that to get after that? So that's the important factor as well.
You remember Beaver County,
Yes.
early on, stayed in red for such a long time because of the nursing facility.
Right. Right. So you're going to see this updated every single week, and you should be checking in on that as well.
So let me also go back to the
How about the actual data part?
right. So if you take, we're back on the website that we just left, determining the instructional models. That Excel spreadsheet was the top link. The next link below that is the early warning monitoring system. And this actually takes you off the Department of Education homepage and onto the Department of Health homepage. And what this does, it's actually pretty cool analytics if you're a data geek. It loads things up, not necessarily quickly, but it loads things up and it shows you from a state standpoint where we are as far as confirmed cases, the incidence rate per 100,000. You can see it with 39.2 there for the state. The percent positivity rate at 4.1%. And you can see down here in the table how that's all reflected.
Right.
What we are saying, that
Yes.
Wouldn't it have been nice
Nice.
if they just put moderate, substantial, or
Right.
low out here
What the current week is at least, right?
instead of having to go back and forth? Again, logic to us doesn't necessarily equate to logic to anyone else. And then this is a nice map right here, the big green map of Pennsylvania that has the ability to click on a specific county.
Right.
And then you can also scroll down here and see the county statistics as well. So that's just the data and where they're pulling the data. So if you're into that kind of thing and want to monitor it, you can definitely do that. It actually gives you on the second page of this the trend analysis, the newly reported cases, and how the incidence rate is changing from the previous 7 days to the current 7 days. So it's good to see things moving from upper left to bottom right. That's a good thing.
There's a lot of data there that would really be useful to you. Again, going back and just see where you are first over that 2-week period, and then if you want to take a deeper dive and see where you are and where it's trending, then we say go to that file so you can see what the trends are in the Department of Health site at this point.
Okay, looks like so far we have one question in the chat room. If you have questions, please go ahead and type those in. Krista is asking, I thought face masks were indoors no matter what, not just if you couldn't distance 6 feet, especially with the reports of airborne studies. Can you clarify? This is a sticking point for staff. Oh, yes, it is.
Yes. So I know our last guidance on this was yes, that everybody should be wearing face masks indoors as well, except that like if kids are working at their seats, that was the initial guidance, and they were 6 feet apart, then they possibly could take their mask off during that time, right? Certainly for eating and things like that. But in all other cases, you know, passing in the halls, all that kind of stuff is the guidance has been and remains 6 feet. I mean, face masks in schools and 6 feet apart. Is that still correct?
Yeah, Krista, that's what we have been told. I mean, now that there's the face mask mandate, right. They're required to wear them in schools. There's been a lot of vacillation between this. A county in the southeast was saying, well, maybe you only need to be 3 feet instead of 6 feet. I heard the reports yesterday that 6 feet may not be enough. So I think what our guidance to you would be, you need to discuss this with your school superintendent. As just stepping away from being a school superintendent, I would be discussing this with my district physician and getting guidance from the Department of Health. But I do know that it's going to be it's going to be hard it's going to be hard for me to wear a face mask, let alone a second grader or a ninth grader. It's going to be a challenge. I'm sorry that our video is blurry and out of focus. We've been told that we look better when we're blurry and out of focus. So not sure what the cause of that is.
Yeah, we're trying a different laptop today, and we think that could be part of it. It's not syncing well with our camera. So,
other questions that you may have out there?
While they're coming in, I do want to mention one of the other things that we're working on, which is a big area, is fall sports right now as well. With the governor saying no fall sports until January 1 is their recommendation. PIAA has hit the pause button on that for at least 2 weeks. So we wanted to let you know is to get some more information from the field, from our school leaders. We launched a very brief survey this morning targeted specifically at middle school and high school principals and assistant principals. So if you could look for that survey in your email box today, we would appreciate if you could fill that out very quickly so that we can get that information to the decision makers. We actually have 2 principals that serve on the PIAA board and have been in discussions, Mike Allison and Jonathan Bauer. So that information will be very helpful. And I will say, by the way, that the Superintendents Association is doing a similar survey at the same time. So they'll bring all that data together and hopefully we'll get some information.
Yeah, we truly appreciate Mike and John's participation in that and their thought. It's good to have principals who oversee athletics and around the state really looking into.
Yeah, I said it would only take you 5 minutes, and somebody just wrote it only took me 30 seconds. So thank you. You're a faster clicker than I am. Yeah. Any other questions or comments that you have that we can help you with right now? Again, we're going to make sure that we upload this recorded webinar as we do every single week. And please feel free to share that with your colleagues as well.
Yeah, and as far as that survey goes, if you know that there are people in your area, in your region, I would really encourage you to forward that to them or encourage them to take that survey. It's just helpful as Jonathan and Mike make our voices heard with PIAA, that they have a good sense of what's going on in your neck of the woods.
So we have a question, what's happening with the Pennsylvania Principals Fall Conference? Yes, if you go to our website, that conference has now been changed to a virtual conference. And the good news is it's free of charge. For all of your hard work over COVID-19, we decided that you still needed some professional development and we still wanted to bring that to you. And we wanted to, on behalf of our board, bring that to you free of charge. So the keynoters that we were going to have for the conference live have agreed to do the conference virtually. So mark your calendar, October 25th. It's a virtual conference, and I believe it's from 1 to 5 at this point, and you can sign up by just hitting the link on our website.
Yeah, and I know that we're getting emails from you on I think about a weekly basis, reminding us.
Yeah, I will just say you want to sign up now because there is a limit, and the only reason we have a limit is because of our Zoom capability for that. It's a limit, it's a 500, so the first 500 people are going to get in for that. So thank you for that question.
Any other comments, questions you might have?
Well, if not, we want to say thank you for joining us again this morning. I hope you'll join us again next Thursday. You know, and look for our webinar. I don't know whether it'll be live or not, but we will be uploading a webinar next week as well.
So we're trying to make those, you know, appropriate to what's going on in the world or in the state and in your world. And we want to make these very user-friendly. So.
Yeah, and I'll just say, as always, if you have any questions, you know, related to COVID-19 and the reopening of school or during the school year, you can certainly shoot Eric or I an email as well, and we'd be glad to get you that information. If we don't know, we'll point you in the right direction.
Right. Our offices are currently closed and remote. If anybody has a question or anybody in your region is asking, please tell them to call in. Our cell phone numbers are on the message, so they can reach us. Plus, Paul and I are coming on a pretty regular basis. So have a great day. Stay well.
All right.